Rutland and Stamford Sound, I'm Rob Persani, and this morning talking to Tracy Dean-Powell from Whistendine about My Little Book of Grief.
Hi Rob, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Tell us where this book came from, because it's something that everyone deals with at some point in their lives, and not everyone wants to write about it.
Well, exactly. This was a book that wasn't intended to be written, in fairness. As a writer, I managed to channel my emotions and feelings down onto paper, and that is how I released the pressure of pain that I was feeling and going through my grief. And it wasn't until a friend said to me, Tracy, I think these poems will actually help others that are going through a similar journey of grief, because you've actually gone to a place that was very dark. I didn't want to go on. The pain was so much that I couldn't see the sense of just going on. So I looked at this and I thought, well, if I can do something positive with this grief and my emotions, then that is a good feeling if I can help others. I wanted to get some feedback, because it's okay me thinking that maybe these poems will help. So 3 funeral directors read the poems and came back to me and said, wow, Tracy, yeah, these poems will help. They will reach out to people so people aren't feeling on their own with grief. A retired GP was also very complimentary, and the vicar at Whistendine, because throughout my grief I really challenged my faith, my Christian faith. A lot of questions. Why? What have I done to deserve this sort of thing? And working through that was quite eye-opening for me, because I actually then developed a different relationship with God, and it's made me stronger in my faith and as a person. So once I'd got all this feedback, I then approached an author in America who's brought out a book called Voices 19. And Voices 19 is a book about 19 people who lost their lives through COVID. Very fit, young people died suddenly of COVID. And this book is making their voices heard. And so I approached this author, Brenda Cortez, saying, would she be willing to read my poems and give me some kind of feedback and a review, which she kindly did. And not only that, she asked for a Zoom meeting with me, which I did, and I was blown away, because that's when she revealed to me she was actually a publisher, and she's published a lot of books in America. And she felt that my book would really complement the Voices 19 book. And so she offered to publish the book both in America and the UK, because I don't think you necessarily get over a loss. I think you learn to live with it. But it makes you a stronger person, because there's always that added love inside, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I think a lot of people think about fairness, if it happens to them or happens to someone they know. How could it have happened to them? Why did it happen to this person and not this person? Yeah. And also, it goes in waves as well. You know, some days you're absolutely fine. Other days, you know, it can really drag you down. And I guess that's where you were.
Yeah, absolutely. There's days when you wake up and for no particular reason, you know it's going to be one of those days where the whole heaviness of grief and depression can weigh on you. And for me, I think losing Bob, I feel I've probably gone through a full grieving process. I lost my parents at 27. They both died 3 months apart. But I don't think I actually fully processed it. I felt, looking back, I had survival instincts, you know. I had a mortgage to pay, I had to go to work, and I had to do this and I had to do that. And I don't think I had time to stop and let grief take its course, which I have with Bob. And I think it's really important. I think if people have suppressed grief, it may be coming out in different ways at different times of their lives. And
you mentioned Bob, someone you knew, someone that a lot of people knew. Tell us about him if people are thinking, who was Bob?
Well, Bob Sheridan lived at Langham. I live at Whistendine, so we weren't very far away. And Bob was very interested in doing history. He's a very knowledgeable man, and he did history, and he did my family history. And like with all families, there's always probably, if you delve back enough, skeletons in the cupboard and things that he revealed in my past, my great-grandmother and father, that was absolutely fascinating. And we grew very close. We had lots of similar interests. He was very interested in stamps and postal systems and how, in particular, the post worked in World War II. And I didn't know, but a lot of the times, obviously the soldiers and forces weren't able to tell people where they were. So there was actually a secret code in the post stamp, which I found fascinating. And he'd collected all these letters, and I began to read them. And I said, Bob, have you read these letters? And he goes, no, because that's obviously wasn't where his interest lied. And I said, well, they're love letters, Bob, from somebody in the RAF to his wife, and he clearly loves his wife. I said, let's try and find the owner of these letters, because if I was the granddaughter, I'd love these letters. So he set about tracking this family down, and he found that they went to South Africa, came back to England, and went back to South Africa. And that's when he said, I'm sorry, I can't do any more, Tracy. Their records in South Africa aren't as thorough as ours. So I said, well, I know, I'm going to go to the BBC then. That's that programme, Who Do You Think You Are? So I approached them, and they did a magazine. So they put an article in this magazine about this family, the Raven family, and somebody who knew the family contacted them and said, this is the family. Margaret, the widow, is still alive. And the son then contacted me. Margaret's sister was actually in England that year, 2020, and I went over and gave them the letters. So these letters are now reunited because of Bob's research into this. And Margaret is actually 100 years old next Tuesday.
Wow.
So that's the kind of thing that we connected with. And with COVID, obviously locked down, and I became his social bubble. So I used to go to see him every day. And we shared the same music interest. I was doing a radio show from home for the Iron, and he helped me with that. So we developed a really close bond, and an unusual bond because it was unusual times. He wasn't seeing anybody else. I wasn't for that, apart from Andrew, my husband. Bob was the only other person. He became a real father figure to me. It was like I'd got my dad back, having lost him at 27. He was a man who hadn't got children of his own, looked upon me as a daughter, and it was a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Someone I could buy something for Father's Day for and Christmas, and suddenly my whole world flourished and blossomed because of it. So losing Bob, it was actually a double whammy because I felt I'd lost a dad again. And I think that profound feeling just hit me very, very hard.
Would you share a poem from your book?
Yeah, of course I can. This particular one, it was written 6 months of losing Bob, and it's called Sometimes. Sometimes I feel I'm running on empty, so depleted that I'm totally hollow inside. And every breath I take gets lost in this void, for I've struggled so much since you died. The weight of loss, it's constant in my heart. Although I hide my pain and sorrow so well, I will smile and say, oh, I'm doing okay, for it's only your photo that I'm prepared to tell. To express just how hard I am coping without you, and how my whole world has fallen apart. How incomplete I am without hearing your laughter, not having your smile to heal my heart. I know that by keeping you in my thoughts, I will also be keeping your memory alive. And I do realise that life must go on, and how you would hate seeing me unable to thrive. So I'm really trying to piece myself together to be the woman you so loved and admired, that I'm forcing myself to try and let go, let it be, fight on, despite feeling so very tired. For each day can be exhausting as I come to terms knowing that you're never coming back, and the nights can be so unforgiving, reminding me of just how much strength I really lack.